When going through my Google archives, I found some old photos from a birthday trip that I took to Grand Central. I think it was my first time going to Grand Central Station. I don't remember which birthday it was. All I remember was it was before I was 18. I thought it would be interesting to take a look at some of these photos, which I thought were lost forever. These photos were all taken on a really old phone. I don't even think it was a smartphone at that time. I think it was a flip phone. So obviously they're not going to be in HD, so bear with me. This first photo is of the Raritan Station. It is sandwiched between two railroad crossings. When I was a kid, I thought the name of this town was Raritan, but apparently no one pronounces it that way, so I'm guessing it's Raritan. Here's another picture of one of the railroad crossings. It has pedestrian gates to stop people from walking onto the tracks when there's a train approaching, but they probably don't listen to them, to be honest. Here's a picture of the platform at Raritan. Here's a picture of the station building at Raritan, which probably isn't being used anymore. Here's a picture of the low-level platform. As you can see, the tracks have been updated to have concrete ties. By the way, you can feel the difference between riding on concrete tracks versus wooden tracks. Tracks that have wooden ties are more bouncy when you ride on them, but the concrete ones are more rigid, and the ride feels a bit more rough in my opinion. Here's a picture of the railroad crossing being activated by the train. This is the top floor of a bi-level car. Here's a view of one of the railroad crossings from inside the train. This is the station at Bridgewater, which I still think is a really weird name for a town. This is the station at Dunellen. I think the Norfolk Southern Lehigh line goes past this station. The Lehigh line runs from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to Newark, New Jersey. Here's another picture of the Dunellen station. When we lived in New Jersey, we used to go to this station in order to go to a park that was nearby. This is the Plainfield station. Interestingly enough, even though we lived in Plainfield, this was not the closest station to where we lived. That was Netherwood. Interesting fact, when I was a kid, I kept misspelling Plainfield because I kept confusing plane as in an airplane with plane as in a field. I kept getting confused with which plane was supposed to go in front of the word field. Also, isn't the name Plainfield kind of redundant? That's like naming a town Tree Forest, or Ocean Sea, or Lake Water, or Rock Cliff, or Sand Beach. This is Netherwood Station. It was our home station when we lived in New Jersey. We used to live about 4 blocks away from it. I sure do miss living in New Jersey. Like, I used to take it for granted, but one thing I really miss about New Jersey is being really close to public transportation. I currently live in the town of Bath, Pennsylvania, and there is zero public transportation here. So if your car breaks down, your only way to get to work is to spend a fortune on Uber, unless you happen to know someone who has a car. Also, I did the math, and taking Uber to and from work is only slightly cheaper than renting a car. What's also really annoying is having public transportation, but no way to travel from one state to the other using public transportation. For example, at the time these pictures were taken, we lived in Easton, Pennsylvania, and that town has public transportation, but it's not connected to New Jersey transit system. There has actually been talk about extending New Jersey Transit's Raritan Valley line to Phillipsburg, New Jersey, and maybe even to Easton, Bethlehem, and Allentown, Pennsylvania, but that started in 2016, and so far, no one has done anything since then. I don't understand what's taking them so long. The infrastructure already exists. Norfolk Southern already has a line that runs from Bethlehem all the way to Newark. All you have to do is build some side tracks to place the passenger trains so that they don't block the freight trains, and add a couple stations, and you'd be good to go, I would think. Amtrak's also talking about building a line that runs from Scranton to New York and stops at Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. For now, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about that. Fanwood is the stop we'd get off at when going to the Fanwood Library, or when going to a model train store that was in the area. Sometimes if we didn't have enough money, we would actually walk along the tracks to the station from Netherwood. It's a lot further away than it looks. When getting off at this station, we used to walk over to the pedestrian bridge so that we could feel the exhaust coming from the locomotive. This is Westfield Station. Here's another picture of Westfield Station. This is Cranford Station. This is Control Point Aldene, where New Jersey Transit trains are switched on to the Conrail line that runs between Bethlehem and Port Newark. It's called the Lehigh Line. You'll normally see trains from Norfolk Southern on this line. This is Roselle Park Station, which is located on the Reading Line. You'll sometimes see freight trains going past the station. Roselle Park and Union stations have what are known as gauntlet tracks. These tracks exist because the freight trains are wider than the passenger trains, and there's a risk of them hitting the platform, so they're switched on the outer rails so that they go around the platform. Meanwhile, the passenger cars are switched inward so that they can go closer to the platform. For some reason, Roselle Park Station only has a gauntlet track on track 2, but Union Station has one on both tracks. This is Union Station. This is me and my father getting off at Newark Penn Station, and some random woman that happened to walk into the shot. Back then, you couldn't take New Jersey Transit's Raritan Valley line all the way to New York because it's illegal for diesel or steam-powered trains to operate under the Hudson River or at the East River tunnels. Since the Raritan Valley line only had diesel-powered trains, you would have to transfer at Newark to go the rest of the way to New York. Nowadays, though, New Jersey Transit has dual-mode locomotives which can operate on both diesel power and electricity, so these can switch to electric power when entering New York. Here's a picture of the cab car. When I was a kid, I used to think that a cab car was a locomotive, but they actually aren't. They're basically just really large remote controls. Whatever you do in the cab car, the locomotive reads those commands and simply follows them. The cab car is not powered. However, there are some trains that do have powered cab cars, like the Aero 3. Newark Penn Station has a very weird track layout. The tracks are numbered A1, B2, 3, H4, and 5. Track B is used for PATH trains that connect to World Trade Center, though technically it's not called World Trade Center anymore. Now it's called Fulton Center, which is a very large underground subway station that connects PATH with the New York City subway system. The train that brought us to Newark stopped on track 1. This is the PL42AC that was pushing the train. This is a PATH PA5 subway car. When I lived in New Jersey, these subway cars hadn't even been invented yet. The train that brought us the rest of the way to New York was being pulled by an Out 46. It pulled into Newark Penn Station on track 1 shortly after the Raritan Valley Line train departed. Here's a picture of one of the train cars. It looks like a converted cab car because it doesn't have a door on the right-hand side of it. Here's another picture of that cab car and the vestibule that connects the coaches together. I'm still not sure what those metal arm things on the side of the cars are for. My guess is they're to keep the cars a uniform distance from each other or something. Here's a picture of the inside of the vestibule of the train. In Europe, these are often referred to as gangways. Here's a picture from inside the train, obviously. I think this is like departing Newark Penn Station or something. Or maybe Secaucus Junction, I don't remember. Oh, and here's a picture of a PATH train we passed on the way out of the station. So it must have been Newark Penn Station, because the PATH doesn't go anywhere near Secaucus Junction. This is Secaucus Junction Station. It was built to link pretty much all of New Jersey Transit's lines with each other. You can transfer to almost every single train line at this station. It has 2 levels. Secaucus Junction and Newark International Airport are the only 2 stations on the Northeast Corridor, at least in New Jersey, that were not originally owned and operated by the Pennsylvania Railroad, but were built after the fact. Here's another picture of Secaucus Junction Station. Here's a picture of the inside of one of the train cars. Here's a picture of an Aero 3 train in New York Penn Station as the train we were riding was pulling in. Here's a picture of the destination sign. These destination signs used to say the destination as well as whether or not the train is a local or an express. But nowadays it only tells you the destination and the train number, which in my opinion is less useful because we never really paid attention to the train number. We only really cared about whether or not it was a local because we needed a local to get to most of the stops that we went to. Here's another picture of the Out 46 that was pulling the train into the station. It is now going to be pushing the train out to the station with the cab car in front. Here's a picture of the pantograph of the Out 46. In New York Penn Station, the catenary lines are only 6 inches above the roof of the train. It's weird, you would think that having the wire that close to the roof would cause arcing, but somehow it doesn't. The catenary line actually changes height throughout the entire system. It varies between 15 feet and 22.5 feet. It's usually only 22.5 feet in areas where it has to share tracks with freight trains because freight trains are a lot taller than passenger trains. Here's another picture of the Out 46. I stopped taking pictures at that time because I was starting to get looks from people because for some reason people really don't like it when you take pictures of passenger trains these days. After a certain amount of time, they'll start getting suspicious, so I had to leave. Here's a picture of the large shopping area within New York Penn Station. Here's another picture of that mezzanine. Here's a picture of the entrance to the station. Now, I like underground train stations, but I don't think New York Penn Station does it correctly. Madison Square Garden is located on top of New York Penn Station. There used to be a train station building here, but when the Pennsylvania Railroad was going bankrupt, they sold the area above their station and the building was torn down in favor of Madison Square Garden. At one time, Amtrak had this idea of having Madison Square Garden move to a different location so that they could build a new station building on top of the station, but unfortunately Madison Square Garden refused that idea. The only way around this issue would probably be to purchase Madison Square Garden and then tear it down, but that likely won't happen anytime soon. I was actually pleasantly surprised to find out that they finally finished the Moynihan Train Hall recently. It is a really large station building. Well, actually it's a post office building, but they converted it to a train hall. Several years ago, I signed up for a newsletter to get email notifications whenever something new happens at the Moynihan Train Hall, but I never got any updates, so I wasn't even sure if they were still working on the project. I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion or not, but I really don't like skyscrapers. They just look like ugly gray squares to me. I'm not even sure which skyscraper this is. I don't even know why I took a picture of it, to be honest. I guess just because it was there. You know, I haven't really noticed until looking at this picture, but a lot of buildings in this area are the exact same color. They could stand to be a little more creative with their color palettes, in my opinion. This is the entrance to the subway station, I think, but it's somewhere within New York Penn Station. New York Penn Station actually has 2 subway stations in it. One is for the AC and E line, and the other one is for the 1, 2, and 3 lines. This is 34th Street Penn Station. There are 2 subway stations with the exact same name because they are both located on 34th Street and they're both located in New York Penn Station. This is a New York City Subway R62 subway car, which apparently they have plans to replace with an R262 subway car, which is a newer type subway car. Though apparently the R262s are just in the planning stage at this time. We were riding the 1 local, which surprisingly was going faster than the 3 express. This is Times Square 42nd Street, where you can transfer to a shuttle that goes to the Grand Central Terminal. Unfortunately, I never took any pictures of the shuttle. You know, sometimes when I go to Grand Central by subway, I get lost when trying to exit the subway station and end up across the street from the station. I wonder how many people actually read this when walking into the station. Here's a picture of one of the many chandeliers inside the station. Here's a secondary waiting area that for some reason is usually empty when I go to this station. This is the entrance to the main concourse. Here's a picture of the main waiting area inside Grand Central Station. Unfortunately, this phone couldn't capture it correctly, but these are supposed to be constellations, which are located on the ceiling of the station. This is the jewel-encrusted clock located at the center of the waiting area. When this station was built, it was the terminal station for the New York Central Railroad, but now it is owned by Metro-North. Long Island Railroad will also soon be operating out of this station as well. One interesting thing about this station is it has an entire concourse dedicated just for dining. I've never been there, but I can imagine it would be really expensive. After all, this was designed to be a very luxurious train station when it was built. You're likely not going to find a McDonald's or Burger King in here. The station has 2 areas where you can climb some stairs and get an overhead view of the area. This is a Metro-North M7, I believe. This incredibly blurry picture is the entrance to the subway station inside Grand Central. This is the station for the 4, 5, and 6 subway trains. Unfortunately, I didn't take any pictures of these trains for some reason. Here's some pictures of a New Jersey Transit train as we're leaving New York Penn Station for the trip home. My phone was really bad at taking pictures of anything that moved back then. This is a picture of an Amtrak train. And here is one of the Acela Express. This was taken at Newark Penn Station on track 5. The Amtrak train is on track 2. I wanted to take a video of the train departing from Raritan Station, but unfortunately my phone ran out of storage at that time. I don't think I knew what SD cards were at the time, so I didn't have one in the phone. Well, that's all the pictures I have. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.